Hey! No, I'm kidding. Hey, what's going on? Of course, it is me, Quita, aka Malaysian Quita, and I welcome you to the first episode of ACBR, also known as the Adult Coloring Book Review. So on this opening episode, I really wanted to, of course, introduce myself, and we're going to be doing some painting in this awesome adult coloring book, which is called Just Add Color Mehendi. So you're probably wondering, who the heck are you? So for those of you who are not familiar with yours truly here, my name, of course, is Quita, aka Malaysian Quita. I also do two other shows here on YouTube. The first one called The Curvy Metalhead Show, where I talk all about rock and metal news, including other genres of music. And then if you want to see more of my geekier side, my gaming side, I have another show that is called Sin TV Gaming. So I know many of you are probably wondering, well, Quita, what the heck is with this show? So look, a couple weeks ago, and I'm not even joking around, a couple of weeks ago, I just came upon just reading about adult coloring books. And I was like, what the heck is an adult coloring book? I had no idea what these books were about. And one thing about me, I love knowledge, I love learning, and I'm a very inquisitive type of person. So this really intrigued me. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to look into this. I'm going to do some research. And then all of a sudden, I got hooked. And it started off with one book. And then all of a sudden, I just started buying more and more. And by the time I looked, I had over 20 different adult coloring books. And here's the thing. Adult coloring books are a completely different experience than your standard kind of like coloring books, you know, that they make for younger people, of course. And it's more intricate, it's more complex. But one thing I noticed, because I have watched tons, and I mean tons of different YouTubers out there who talk about adult coloring books, but then on top of that, you know, with my own research, I just noticed that something that's very important to me, and I know many of you will realize this, of course, soon enough, is that multiculturalism and diversity is important to me. And one thing that I was noticing from like my research and watching, you know, YouTube about adult coloring books is I really noticed the lack of diversity. I didn't find many like people of color who were talking about this. And the thing about it too is it's weird with the whole, like, I like to say the adult coloring books subculture, is that some people, you know, are very open about it, but then others are kind of like, I mean, I like it, but I'm not going to tell anybody about it. And one thing for me, and I know many other adult coloring books YouTubers that I have watched, one thing I noticed overall is that a lot of them want for people to be comfortable with adult coloring books, and that's the same stance that I have as well. But I really want to take a multicultural approach, to it. And on top of that, another thing that I'm going to be doing too is interviews, because I noticed that there's not a lot of interviews on YouTube in regards to people who are involved in this subculture. Now, some people say it's a scene, but to me, it is a phenomena, because like I was reading recently that like some of the most well-selling books on Amazon are not your stereotypical like novels. It's actually adult coloring books that are very popular. I mean, of course, you have Johanna Batsford, hopefully I'm saying that right, who really to me was one of the pioneers in this particular subculture with books such as The Secret Garden, which I am really trying to get my hands on, but the book just keeps selling out every time. Every time I want this coloring book, I just can't get it. So, you know, like once I started kind of reading about her, I would love to get an interview with her for the show. And also, you know, my emphasis, of course, too, is I also want to get interviews with multicultural people who are involved in this subculture. Because one thing I've kind of been learning, and I think I've been learning this throughout my life so far, is that when you are a person of color and you like, you know, and you like things that are not like stereotypically revolved around people of color, you're kind of labeled as being weird or strange or different. And one thing that I constantly do on the Curvy Metalhead show, as well as in TV Gaming, as well as here at the Adult Coloring Book Review, is I want to debunk that. I want, you know, for multicultural people, it doesn't matter, you know, if you're white, you know, African American, whatever, you know, to feel comfortable and to know it's okay to like, you know, adult coloring books, and that it's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be relaxing and not stressful. Because I know when I first started embarking in this, like, understanding this subculture, which I am still new to be honest, it was a lot for me to take in. It was seriously a lot for me to take in. I mean, from the supplies that you need, you know, gel pens versus Prismacolor versus the more like generic brands that you would find at the dollar store. Not saying that that's bad, but you know, when you go to the dollar store, for example, there's so many different brands of colored pencils, and they all have different like hardnesses and textures and all of that. And of course, you have the classic Crayola as well, you know, and some people say this is better than the other. So one thing I like to do is KIS, keep it simple. I really wanted to make a show about adult coloring books that was not so complex. It would be something that would be relaxing and enjoyable. But don't get me wrong, we'll still get into some of those complex type of topics, you know, and definitely I will be reviewing these books as I get them. And the other thing I want to do is to go through these adult coloring books and finish them to completion. Pardon me. You'll have to pardon me for not being able to talk completely straight today. I am so tired, but I was like, I have to make sure I get this first episode and kind of, you know, give this introduction. But yeah, I will be finishing coloring books to completion. So I will be working on it page by page, and I'll definitely be, of course, taking, you know, pictures and stuff like that as well. And if you also check out, I will have in the about section all of the social media and all that stuff for the Adult Coloring Book Review. So for the Twitter itself, it is at twitter.com/ACB Review. So I just wanted to make it easy. So ACB Review. So that stands for Adult Coloring Book. And then review is completely spelled out, of course. Completely spelled out. So without further ado here, I am going to be working on the very first coloring piece in this awesome book called Just Add Color Mehendi. And then one thing I'll also do is do commentary and kind of talk not only about adult coloring books, but other things, you know, like stuff that happened in my day, all that good stuff. But I'll also talk about what supplies that I use. And one of the key things for me is I want to make it affordable, because what I'm noticing, and this is just from my research, that this can get very expensive. I mean, you got Prismacolors out here, and you know, I was looking up some of those colored pencils. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're amazing, but not everybody wants to spend like, you know, $30 to $40 on some colored pencils. I mean, hey, if I'm paying that much, that had better you know, come with some awesome stuff for me to be paying that, right? So this is what ended up happening. I ended up getting these really awesome watercolored, and you can use these for all different types of paints. And these are from eBoot. And I got 6 of these, and they're all in different numbers, which give the like the thickness or the detail of the brush. And this is from eBoot, and I got 6 brushes for $9. And look at the quality of these. I mean, let me show this here. I mean, it looks amazing. Here is the actual detail of the brushes. So today I'm going to be using the eBoot detailed brush set, and I'll be using 000, or pardon me, yeah, 000, and I'll be using 00 and number 1. And the only reason why is because I'm working with watercolor, and this is the first piece that I'm going to be working on here. And as you can see, there are a lot of tiny lines, and it's very finely detailed, if you want to put it that way. So I really, really wanted to make sure that I picked something simple at first. Now, as a disclaimer, okay, I am not an adult coloring book like professional, okay, like some of these YouTubers out here that have like amazing work that I am like so jealous of. I am a beginner, but you're gonna go through this process of me improving, of me getting better, hopefully. But at the end of the day, I like to color the way that I like to color. I have no problems with suggestions. You know, definitely leave suggestions. Let me know what is on your mind, of course, and how you feel about the show. That's also very important to me as well. And you can also keep in touch with me at AdultColoringBookReview at gmail.com. So I'll have all of that on the about. I'm not going to be one of these annoying people where it's like, check out my social media. Check out my social media. I'm not going to do all of that because that can be really annoying. But that's just me personally. But yeah, I am a beginner. I'm just doing this, of course, you know, because I enjoy adult coloring books, but I am also someone who loves to learn. So let's do this. So besides the eBoot detailer brushes, I also have a 30-piece watercolor set that I got from Target, actually. So I'll be using a wide variety of colors as well. So we'll see how it goes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, so let's start. And here's the thing about watercolor is that you just take your time, okay? And on top of that, another thing that I do recommend is making sure you have some kind of like tissue with you or something to like blot your brushes on. So I'm actually gonna get that. So I will be right back. All right, I am back, of course. So what I'm going to be using to blot is this face pad. So this is what I would use to like scrub my like face with, but this also is really good for blotting your brushes as you're doing your watercolor as well. So I will be working with that. Okay, so let's get started here. So excited. I think I'm going to go in with the 00. And one thing about watercolor I want to tell you right now is you just want to tap the water gently, okay? Because I have a water kind of palette here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with this really nice, like magenta color. And I'm going to use this in the get this a little bit wetter. Because what I'm noticing right away is it is not showing up. There we go. There we go. Oh, look at that. First time. And I'm just going to use this for that magenta color. And what I'm noticing right away is this magenta is like, it's like pink. And these brushes have a little bit more thickness than like what I thought. So I'm going to wet this up a little bit more. And from what I see here, this is really watered down, like really watered down. Not as vibrant watercolor as I thought this was going to be. So I have a feeling that I'm going to have to go over this like multiple layers. And I will do my best to go in the lines as much as I can. But this magenta color, it's interesting. So, and you can do, what's really cool here is you can use multiple colors with, you can do like kind of gradients with watercolor. So I'm going to actually try that because, you know, one thing about adult coloring is you want to be experimental, okay? You never just want, you know, to just go over something and not, you know, not try different types of methods. And don't be afraid to try different methods. And here's the thing. I got intimidated when I first started like doing this. I seriously did get a little bit intimidated because I think that was the first mistake for me, was not really a mistake, was I started kind of looking at what other people were doing. And then when I saw their artistic level, it just totally knocked me down and I wanted to give up. And here's the thing, stuff like shading, detailing, textures, all that stuff, it takes time. This is like the first time of me actually painting with watercolor. So I'm still learning. This is a completely new medium to me, but I know as I practice, I'll get better with it. And here's the other thing, you know, you don't have to stay in the lines, but for me, I try to, just so that I can see the detail. But like they always say, you got to practice in order to get better at it. So far this watercolor is weird. It's kind of interesting, I will say that. So all I'm doing is I'm kind of blending the magenta and the purple. It's like a dark kind of purple together here. Just kind of trying to do a little bit of a gradient there, if you want to call it that, but you know. All right, so let's clean that color out with my face pad that I'm using to kind of blot. Okay, so I'm using that for that one. Okay, I think I'm going to use the next thinnest one, which is the 000. And what I'm liking about these E-Boot brushes is they go on just really, really nice. I mean, when I put the paint on, it just goes on so smooth and nice for me. And right now I'm using this brown kind of color. It's supposed to be like a deep brown, but eh. And one thing about watercolor too, depending on the quality of the watercolor. But see, what I'm thinking now, since I'm doing this one in watercolor, I think I might do more acrylics than watercolor though. But we'll see, because different paints give you different types of looks. Okay, so I think I'm going to make a new place here for the water. And here's the thing about watercolor too, you don't want to put too much water because then it makes your page too wet. I may even have to get some smaller detail brushes just because of the way I see like how the color is actually spreading or on the brush itself here. But I am really impressed so far with the actual, yeah, I may have to get some better or much smaller detail brushes, but you know, I don't really care. I mean, if I color outside of the lines, it gives it an extra something, you know? So let me go back in. And then I noticed the less water that I use, that's the more vibrant the color is showing up for me. So, and I don't even think, is that really brown? It's not really brown. It seems like it's more of like a maroon kind of color. And you'll have to pardon me too. I have been getting sick. It's just been awful for yours truly. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get an even smaller, detailed kind of brush set. And I did see one on Amazon. Now let's kind of talk, and I'll make a separate video definitely talking about this. Excuse me, I am just ill. Ugh. This is why I love water. But I'll make a separate video about this. But there are a lot of really good places where you can get affordable art supplies. And one place that really kind of surprised me actually was Amazon. Amazon this is where I got these e-boot brushes that I'm using right now. And yeah, it really impressed me actually. I was kind of surprised. I was like, it just impressed me that what you can find on Amazon. And then if you want to as well, I'm just kind of going back and I'm attempting to try texture here and failing miserably. Okay. And I don't want to just keep it like this. I think I'm going to add some, I think I'm going to put like a gold kind of color. I think that would look really interesting. Let's try that out. Yeah, I really like that. Just kind of in between like certain areas here, just to kind of give it a little something. Just trying to put some, it's a little bit of, trying to do a little bit of like kind of overlapping with certain colors here. Let's try that. And I'll also probably use this color in the leaves itself. Just kind of learning how to do a little bit of overlap with color. And then the one thing about watercolor too is if you're trying to do like multiple colors, you want to at least wet your brush a little bit more, and then you'll start to see the colors kind of not blend together, but they'll start to kind of separate a little bit. But you have to make sure that you are putting enough water. You don't want to put too much water because then you won't get that kind of gradient like effect. Because I can see it right now. It looks really good. I keep mixing my waters up here. But yeah, I mean, going to Amazon, like I was saying before, it's a great resource too. And then another thing too, definitely, is YouTube was a really good resource for me as well. You know, because there are a lot of talented people in this adult coloring book like scene, like this subculture. I mean, very, very talented. I mean, I do not have skill in comparison to some of the people that I have seen, and they are just absolutely talented and brilliant. Like, just I look at their work and I get jealous. I seriously do get jealous. And one thing about like watercolor too, you may have to go over it a couple times in order to get like that different colored effect that I got there. So I think I'm gonna leave the branches with that kind of consistency. So what I did once again was I took this kind of deep red maroon color, and then I just put like a kind of like a marigold yellow, which is really nice. And then we'll do that. Yeah, I'm going to have to get some smaller detailed brushes. The only thing I will say about these e-boot brushes, though, is it glides on really well, but it spreads, like the brush, the bristles of the brush do spread a lot bigger than how it actually shows. So I will probably need some tinier detail brushes, which I saw on Amazon. And like most of the time, honestly, when you're starting, you shouldn't even be spending so much on your brushes. I've seen brush sets for like $50, and I'm like, no, I am not a pro like that. So not gonna be doing that. So for me, since I'm, just kind of starting in this, I'm just telling myself like, okay, I'm gonna probably just get what I need and that's it for me. And I have more than enough books that I need to go through, for completion anyway. So let's put that yellow again on top here. And I will probably have to put on a couple more layers because that's just how it goes. And if you don't like how it looks too, you can always go with your color here. And that's the nice thing about watercolor is that you can, put a little bit more here. Let's say you want this to be a little bit more orange. You want this to kind of separate a little bit more. You can always do that. Make this a little bit more orange in here. There you go. So that is looking pretty good so far, if I do say so myself. And yeah, I really enjoy like painting and like, I mean, once I started learning about these adult coloring books and that, so many people are having fun with it, I was just like, yes, I have to like check this out. Now, here's another tip of something I'm learning too is I think a lot of times what beginners make mistakes on, especially with watercolor, is they just want to constantly dip back into the watercolor. And a lot of times you can get really cool colors with just using what's left over on the brush with a little bit of water. And as you can see here, I got a completely different color on this side, which is pretty cool. And you can leave like something like that where it's just like kind of fading off if you want. But I think what I'll do is I'll just make this one kind of like a lighter kind of orange. And you can put all kinds of textures and stuff like that. I mean, one thing I really do like about these type of coloring books too is you just make it your own. And it's supposed to be something that is relaxing. But like I was saying in the beginning, I was stressing myself out seriously. I was just like, I gotta get the right brushes. I gotta get the right, coloring books. I can't use this. I can't use that. And it's like you can use whatever you want. Like this is what I have currently, okay? So besides these detailer brushes, I have 6 of them. I have the 30-piece watercolor set with all different types of colors, from the darkest greens to like peach for like I could use that for different skin tones, to the deepest brown. So I have a pretty even set of colors. And then I ended up getting a metallic, which I definitely want to try that out for sure. And then I ended up getting a pack of 30 Crayola twistable colored pencils, which is pretty cool if I do say so myself. Because I don't like the regular colored pencils just because they break sometimes depending on what type you get. And I also got a sharpener because I ended up getting a blender pencil. Well, I got a 2-pack of 2 blender pencils and 2 burnisher pencils for like creating shine. So eventually, as I improve, because I will be on the show, of course, I will be using all different types of techniques, from watercolor to acrylic. And oh, here's some good news. Okay, so I did some shopping. One thing you'll know about me is I'm like obsessed with online shopping. So what ended up happening was you won't believe this, but I ended up crazy. I ended up just buying a easel. It's like an all-in-one storage easel. So it's a tabletop easel because I wanted something for the show, and I really am working on this. I want to have a 2-camera setup where you can actually see my face and see me doing the piece that I'm working on all simultaneously. But it's not as easy as you think to set it up. So that is what I am currently working on. All right, let's go back in with that kind of maroonish red. There we go. So I just have that. I'm trying not to put too much water because I don't want it. I mean, don't get me wrong. This Just Add Color, not even gonna lie, the paper quality is exquisite. I mean, I'm not seeing any kind of soak issue. But just because I am using watercolor, what I did was I put 2 sheets of just plain white paper underneath to absorb, just in case. So if you are doing this in a book, and the nice thing about this Just Add Color book too is that it's not so like I would say you can rip it out. Like the pages are perforated. So if you like, for me, I like to try to keep my books intact so that I can see the progression of my, like, to see how my work is going, how I'm coloring. But you can also rip them out individually. But all I did was I got a drawing board, like an artist drawing board, and then it came with like a clip, and then I clipped the book with 2 bigger clips to hold it in place. But then I found out that the clips that I got were not big enough, so I have to go back to another place where you can get some good art supplies, but sometimes they can be a little bit expensive depending on what you're getting, is Hobby Lobby. Because I was looking at a easel there, but I was like, it's too much. So this particular tabletop easel does come with acrylic paint, so I'm excited about that, to try that as well. And also, most importantly, you always want to make sure you have proper ventilation, especially if you're working with any type of paint. Very important to do that. And once again, like I said, I am not a professional, adult coloring book professional. And then on top of that, depending on what supplies that you're interested in, always make sure to consult a medical professional to make sure you're aware of, not getting art products that, you may not want to inhale. It's not good for your health. But yeah, these watercolors are not too bad. I mean, they blend okay. I mean, they're not like your, super high quality, but it really doesn't matter at this point, especially, I'm a beginner and you're learning. So, but yeah, Hobby Lobby, I will say, is a good place, but you just have to watch it because sometimes, their stuff can be ridiculously kind of high price though. But, a lot of times though, you get what you pay for when it comes to art supplies sometimes. But I always like to look for stuff that's affordable, but on top of that, stuff that, you can get a good, a good price on. So this is looking really cool though, I have to say. All right, let me go back in with that orange. And go up top here. And what I try to do is do different strokes. That's how I get that kind of gradient color, is from, I'll show you here. So I wet it. Here is that kind of golden marigold. And then I just press down. And then I let it kind of blend in. I take a little bit of water too. And then I just let those colors kind of blend into one another. But then sometimes what can happen when you're working with watercolor, like what you just saw there, is you'll get like some whiteness, like the paint is starting to move. You can always go back in. And that's where I get that gradient from too, is I play around with, see, watercolor is about timing too when you're trying to blend like different gradients that you're trying to do. Like right now I'm learning how to blend watercolor with two colors and how to do a gradient with one color at a time and two colors at a time. But you have to use the water is really the key. And you have to play around with the water and get that timing right. And let me tell you, that is not easy at all. The pros make it look like it's so simple, but it's really not. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty cool. I really like that. So I think for today's episode, though, I'm just going to work on these lines, like these branches and stuff. And then also, when I am not on, as they would say, I will be working on it so that way you can see the progression as well. Because for me to finish a piece from start to finish, if I was on doing every, episode, it would take a lot of episodes, which would be ridiculous. Unless that's what you want me to do, because I will certainly do that. But I also will make sure to work on these so that way you can see the progression and then you can see it being completed. So, and that's important to me, like I said, is to complete. Because I am, as they would say, I am totally a completionist. I feel like that sometimes. Okay, so let's start working on this lower half of this flower. And I believe Mehendis is the like Indian like tattoos and stuff like that, like henna, the different designs, and they are so beautiful. Okay, so shout outs to Indian people, because Indian people are totally awesome and really talented. And I really, many of you may not know, or for some of you, I am definitely a huge fan of Bollywood. I enjoy Bollywood movies as much as I enjoy the good looking Indian men that are in those movies. They are so good looking and very good looking, if I do say so myself. And yeah, I love, like, what's his name, Shah Rukh Khan and stuff like that. I mean, very talented, very good looking. And yeah, like me and my friends would just sit down and just drool and be like, someday we shall have an awesome man like that. But yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. See, I like how this is going. I think I'm gonna keep some, like, I'll do some like two-tone like this, and then I'll do some just plain yellow. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. That's my, totally over the top voice there. One thing you'll learn about me, especially on this show, is I like making ridiculous like sounds and noises. So if you are not into that, this show is totally not going to be for you, because I just like having fun. I don't really like to take things too seriously unless, it has to be talked about in that manner. But I mean, what's important to me is I just want coloring to be fun again, because now it's so artistic that, like, sometimes some adults, not all, they're just really like scared to get into it because, they don't want to. Because that's one thing I've realized, about adults though, is that sometimes, they're afraid of being harshly critiqued. But it's like, when it comes to this stuff, you shouldn't care what people think. The only time you should care is, let's say you're entering a competition or something. But even then, everybody has different criteria of what they think is talented versus what is not. So to one person, what I'm doing right now is pretty awesome. To another person, they may think this is crap. But that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I'm enjoying what I do, and that's all that really matters. So if you wanted to see that differentiation of the yellow, it's just from the water. I just took a little bit more water, and it's the same marigold color, but as you can see, the less water, that you use, that's the less intensity. And the more water you play around with, that's the lesser color that appears. So, yeah, I think I'm just going to do, because, it is, well, it's winter now, but I'm like, you know what? I'm still thinking like it's fall. So I'm going to do these in like fall kind of colors, like the leaves and stuff. I think would look really cool like that. And it's so funny too, because like when I do these type of paintings, or if I'm painting, people say, "Oh man, you're doing such a good job," and I think that I suck, and I never ever keep in the lines ever. I try to make it kind of unique in a way where, it kind of goes off, the lines, and that's okay. And that's one thing I want to if I could share anything, is for all of you, who enjoy adult coloring, like, it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be something that is annoying. All right, so let's go in. Okay, let me get a little bit. Okay, let me blot off this yellow, because I don't want it to be everywhere. And I'm going to go in with this really sassy red. Sassy red! That's like my horrible 80s rocker voice. Sassy red, sassy red. That's like how all 80s like rock sounds like to me. Not really, no. But no, I really enjoy, rock and metal. I've been listening to it forever. And some of my favorite artists include, I love Ozzy, Black Sabbath, that stuff. I love Led Zeppelin. I really enjoy, man, so many artists. I love Soundgarden, Rage Against the Machine. I'm really into that like new metal stuff, so you can call me a poser. That's fine. Poser? No. I really also enjoy. I like Nickelback. I admit it. Okay, like I'm sorry, but Chad Kroeger, like he rocks my socks for some reason, and he shouldn't. Like so many would say, but I love him. He's great, And I think it's something with his voice. I think that's what it is. It gets me. Okay, it speaks to me. That sounds like every Lana Del Rey fan. Every time I listen to Lana Del Rey, it's like she speaks to me, I'm kidding. All right, just kind of playing around with different colors here. That looks kind of unique-ish, a little bit. This was kind of like, I was using this kind of next to kind of pink kind of color here. Yeah, it looks good. Let me try another color here. I think I'm gonna try this lighter pink. Let me try to get another kind of gradient on the flower. Try to do that. Let me try mixing two colors together and see what happens. Oh, it makes this more kind of vibrant pink. That's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, actually. I like it. The funny thing is, I'm only using one of these brushes. I'm not even trying the other one here. Because I think I realized that the thickness is intense. I'm trying to cover up as much of the whiteness as I can here. But what also happens with watercolor, since it's watercolor, you may have to go over it a couple times, if you want. But I tend to do mine a little bit lighter because I want it to kind of look washed out a little bit. So, all right. In the center here, I just have like a cleanup, just to clean up my brush here. So the main one I've been using is the it's a 000, and so far, as you can see, it's pretty good. So I'm gonna move on here, and I'm gonna try the 00 and see how this goes. And I'm going to try it on the next couple of branches here, or may I say leaves, because this is more like a flower than and you can tell this one is a little bit, it's a little bit thicker. And once again, if you want the color to show up more, you just want to use a little less water. If you want to show it up to be a little bit watered out, no pun intended, then you want to use less, well, you want to use more water. It kind of makes the color look much lighter. But see, it also depends once again on what kind of watercolors that you're using. You know what else I'm really excited for? I'm not even gonna sit here and lie. 50 Shades Darker. I had the pleasure, no pun intended, of watching this hot, just super intense, sexy, like trailer for 50 Shades Darker. It was so funny. I was like drooling. And at first, I was like, why am I drooling? But then I saw, James Dornan. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. And when I saw his back muscles, let me tell you, I lost it. I was just like, I want a man like that today. uh, but a woman can only dream. I can only dream. That sounds like a Cher song right there. But yeah, I mean, he's like mega hot to me. At first, like in the first movie, he didn't look that good. I was just like, ew. But in the second movie, I am interested because he was looking real good. Especially that part in the shower where he just like picks her up and just totally like just in a real like classy way, like, hey, I like want you. And I'm just like, if only love was that easy, right? it's oh man, it was awesome. Okay, so I'm kind of playing around with the watercolor to get that same effect. And here's the thing too, when you're a beginner, don't think that you're gonna get it perfect right away, because even when you're working with watercolor, it always can come out different combinations. Like as you can see right now, it's completely different gradient than what I had before over here. It's like completely different. It doesn't even, I mean, it looks similar, but it's not going to be exact. So I'm sorry if you're a perfectionist. Adult coloring books with watercolor, it may take you some time. Just saying. No. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I am really impressed with myself. No, totally kidding. But what else has been going on with me too? You know what I've also been enjoying, like no lie? I've been enjoying stand-up comedy. I have been watching so much stand-up comedy. Now, who are some of my favorite comedians? Like right off the bat, I have to say I am in love with Amy Schumer. Now, I know some people will be like, it's not right for me to like Amy Schumer. But okay, this is the reason why I love her, okay, for a couple reasons. Number one, she's a balls buster, okay? I use this term balls buster as someone who is fearless, someone who just says the jokes, has no filter, and just really stands by their humor. And I think these days, like sometimes comedy can get too soft. And I've always liked comics that are what they like to call the offensive comics or the shock kind of comics. I've always liked comics like that, like Lisa Lampanelli, Amy Schumer. I've liked so many. I like Sarah Silverman and Whitney Cummings. I also like Joe Coy. And okay, one thing that you will learn on this show is I talk about Asian people and Asian culture a lot because I love it. And that's the reason why I started off with doing this Mehendi book, is because I've always been fascinated with Asian culture, particularly Asian pop culture, like forever. It's always intrigued me, not in like a stereotypical way, but it's just fascinating to me. It really, really is. So this is the thing I love about watercolor. You can just wash it out and your brush is good as new. Look how clean that is. Look how clean my brush is. Ta-da! Okay, and then once again, we're just gonna go with, just get enough water, because sometimes you need a little bit more water, especially when you're mixing colors together. Okay, so let's get at in that same. Yeah, but I just think Asian guys are just like hot. They really are to me, I swear. No, any man that's good looking, I will probably say hi and know that I have no chance, but that's okay. But yeah, I enjoy stand-up comedy. Another person I love Gabriel Iglesias, Pablo Francisco, and I also love my Southern comics as well, like Ralphie May and I forgot his name, but he's a cool Asian guy, and he also does like Southern kind of comedy too, which is so refreshing. I always like people like that like think outside of the box as well. And he is hilarious. I enjoy him greatly. Okay, so I'm gonna play around with some of these other colors because I'm getting a little too much in the fall here. And I think that I am going to go for a green. Not any green, that would be boring. So I see this kind of interesting lime green. So I'm going to start, working on the leaves here. And one thing about me too, you'll have to realize is sometimes I can get really ridiculously indecisive too. So sometimes I'm just like, okay, let's work on this today. And then I end up working on something. Well, that's art, dang it. No, I'm kidding. Take it or leave it, darling. No, I'm kidding. Another thing too that I love is I'm really into vintage like TV shows and vintage movies too. So sometimes if you hear me talking like that, that's probably because I watched a vintage show. That's probably why. But I enjoy it. I enjoy those like femme fatale kind of shows. Those are always fun to watch. It's a completely different time, completely different time. And the reason why, like, for me being a beginner too, that I decided to kind of start off with one medium is when you start off with one medium, you get better at it, then you can build upon it. So who knows, by the time I finish this book, I'll probably be using like colored pencil and watercolor and a little bit of everything, and then learning how to play around with textures and stuff. Because what I've always wanted to practice and do is like take a picture like this, right? And coloring it in, and then putting textures on top and then painting on top of the textures for it to like really pop through with like watercolor. Oh, gagging. Um, Excuse me. Disgusting, right? Real professional. But yeah, that's something I've always wanted to do. They call it mixed mediums, using different types of mediums. But I figured for learning purposes too, and for all of you to go through this process with me, I just wanted to start off with one medium at a time and then getting better with time. Because that's often the way it goes when you are learning this is first you kind of start, a little basic and nothing wrong with that. And then as you progress, you start to realize like, oh, hey, you know what? I could do a leaf like this and then go in with like, this is more of like a more deeper green. And then you can just go in like that. And you have 2 shades of green. I'm actually using 3 shades of green. And then you start to build upon that, and you could be like, oh, I could like maybe get some like rubber stamps and stamp over certain parts of the leaf and then paint over it. And then, you know, you start to kind of build on, you start to build on top of that. So you never know. So that's one thing I've kind of learned about, you know, creativity, is that it's okay to let yourself go. I mean, you know, as adults, sometimes, you know, being an adult means sometimes you have to be really uptight, and that can be annoying. Like sometimes it's just good to let go. So this is what I do, and this is what I do in my life personally, is that I give myself every day, including right now, I give myself an hour to 2 hours if I can, or sometimes even if it's 30 minutes relaxation time. Maybe I'll turn on some music, you know, and just not think about anything and just paint or, you know, color my coloring books. And when I finish something and it comes to completion, it is like the best thing in the world. It just feels so good, you know? And you feel like so accomplished, you know? It's just a really nice feeling. It really is. Oh, this is coming together better than what I thought. I thought this was really gonna flop. I thought I was gonna get booed. Like, boo, this sucks. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do that other. All right, I'm gonna do that. Other, do that flower. And do that too. Oh, and I also love Pablo Francisco. I'm obsessed with him. He, by far, one of my favorite comics, besides Russell Peters. Like, if you want a really interesting, like, diversity kind of comedian, he is your man. That guy, you can't even put him into a category because he's that hilarious. Like, there are some comics that, yeah, you can obviously put them into a category, no problem. But this guy, I mean, not only is he to me, well educated, you know, in regards to like how, you know, how different cultures are. I mean, he's traveled all over the world, and those to me are like the best comics, are people who are well cultured. That to me is very important. You know, I mean, it's one thing to be funny, but if you can be knowledgeable funny, as I like to say, it makes a complete difference in the way that you do your comedy. Like, seriously, it really does. All right, so we're gonna continue here. And the key too is also, I mean, you don't have to have a color palette, but I try to keep the colors as similar as much as I can. But sometimes I like to do half and half just to see the color contrast as well. And that is when you really start to have fun with adult coloring, is when you stop trying, because there's really no rules. I mean, you can follow like art rules, you know, like for example, you know, the rule of thirds or something like that. You know, if you're doing something related to, if you want something more like photographical, you know, you could do rule of thirds or things like that. But or color theory, which let me tell you, color theory can get really ridiculously complicated. So the simplest way from like the research that I've read so far in regards to color theory is you just want to keep it KIS, you know, or as I would say, keep it simple, complementary. So just find colors that are what you think are complementary to you, and then that kind of helps bring everything together for you. And it really makes a difference though. Like if you pick colors that you're really satisfied with and are really complementary, you can, you can tell that you enjoy your work more. But if you pick colors that you know that you would not enjoy, like painting or whatnot, you can tell, by the time you finish your work, like, oh, I am not enjoying this. So that's the key to me is, pick colors that you feel are flattering. And I often, what I like to do is first, I kind of just start picking colors, and then eventually I find a certain palette that like works, and then I just kind of go with it from that point. So yeah, this is looking really, really good. Like, I'm really impressed. I'm impressed with myself. I can't believe I actually have skills. No, not really. Not really. I can never be conceited at all. It would be really hard for me to be conceited though when it comes to this kind of stuff, because it's just like I'm still like learning. All right, so let's keep going with this these flowers here. And we got this kind of purple. But see, I don't like the purple watercolors in this particular palette. It's kind of hard for it to show up. That's the main problem that I'm having right now, is it's not, I feel like I would have to mix it with another like deeper color for it to show up. Like if you can see it right now, you barely can see it. So I feel like I would have to mix it with like this color. Maybe I'll try this color here and see if I like it. Yeah, this is much better. Much better. And I'm just picking colors that are like pretty much complementary to each other per se. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at my watercolor palette and I'm just picking colors that are complementary, or in this case, really adjacent to each other. And that's how I'm getting all these different color combinations. So that's how I'm doing it. It looks pretty good. Try it again here. Yeah, now it's showing up a little bit better. Yeah, I like how this flower is showing up actually. And then the other thing I like to do too is I like to kind of play around with a little bit of texture. So while it's drying, I also like to move my brush around as well. So then I get a little bit of different textures of how it looks like. Like as you can see, this flower is a lot thicker than that one because I'm putting a little bit more of like detail, adding a little bit more of paint and vibrancy to it. So it's definitely making a bigger difference. And then the other thing too is you don't want all, I mean, depends how you want it, but to me personally, I don't like having all of my flowers looking the same. So I will switch up the colors here I think I'm gonna go with decisions. Okay, so I already got a red, and I already got kind of like and I know the greens are gonna be for the leaves. You know what? I'm gonna try this. Okay, how about purple and like this nice kind of blue color? I mean, I'm still learning color theory, but it's like I don't really care about it. You know, maybe for like mixing colors, yeah, I should care, but like, oh, look at this. It's like a deeper blue. I like that. Oh, that looks really cool. So this is like blue, and it's kind of like a lilac purple. Makes this really nice, like light blue color. I really like that actually. I think I'm gonna keep that because it just kind of adds that nice like pop of like color. Okay, I'm gonna make another flower blue to kind of counteract this like these two purples right here. Okay, I'm gonna totally do that. I really like this. So here is another blue flower. And see what I mean by like creativity when you're, you know, painting in an adult coloring book, you just want to go for it, you know? I mean, sometimes you may have specific kind of color schemes, as they call it, that you may want. And let's say you didn't like how the color was going, you can also just put a little bit of water, and then that kind of helps to even it out. Well, look at that. I really like that. And I have like all different colors of flowers. Oh, this is gonna look so good once it's done. All right, so I think for the last couple minutes of this episode, I've worked on some of the major parts for you to see. So I think I'm gonna start working on these leaves because these leaves need to be done, right? Okay, so I went in with like a lime kind of green, and then I mixed it with a deeper green for the outer part of the leaf. So let's see. There's not a lot of leaves in this piece, which is kind of surprising though. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna focus on these here being green. And another thing I try to do too is I use the least amount of watercolor, you know, paint as possible. So I try to get as much on the brush to kind of get it going there like that. And we continue here. Because then that kind of helps you to save product here. Because let me tell you, I mean, even though I didn't pay much for these watercolors though, but I know later down the line, as I get better, I'm gonna be like, yeah, let me like conserve this watercolor, okay? So let's do that. All right, and then let me wash all that out, and then I'll go back in, and I think I want this to be See, I'm going all the colors pretty much, so I just want to see, and see, a lot of it is going to be this process. Seriously, like you're gonna have to do this, where you're gonna have to, you know, when you buy a watercolor set, they call it swatches and stuff. But I kind of do it a little bit differently. Like I like to kind of use something like a practice piece and then try it that way, and then see like how it goes. There we go. Let's go back in here with that same combination that I used for the leaves. And do that. And I think painting outside of the lines gives it a little bit more like texture, to be honest. Because I think if I painted in the lines, it would look really boring, maybe. A little water on that. And I'll fill in the rest of my leaves that way. Details. There are tons of leaves in this one, so I know that's going to be like my project tomorrow. Is like, mission, get all the leaves painted before like next episode, because there are tons. And when I mean tons of leaves, they were not, I'm not joking. Like you can see there are tons of leaves. All right, so let me go back in here. And sometimes you have to look, you know, another thing that's important too is you want to look at your work from different angles and stuff like that. So then it gives you an idea of whether or not do you have to add more watercolor or less watercolor, or are you putting too much watercolor too? So that's important stuff to know as well. And I just felt these leaves didn't have enough vibrancy to them because they're leaves after all. And I think for the next one, I'm going to actually draw in some textures and see how that goes. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So I can't believe it. The first episode is over. No, I'll be back for more. But thank you so much. I appreciate, you know, all of you freaks and geeks out there who enjoy what I do. From the bottom of my heart, I'm really grateful. And that's why I started the adult coloring show review, is, you know, so you guys get to see, you know, a more artistic side of me, of course. And this is looking really good so far. Like, not even joking, I'm pretty impressed. Like, I thought this was gonna come out really crappy, but it ended up being better than, you know, much better than what I thought. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Of course, if you want to keep in touch, of course, you can check me out at Twitter here, which is at twitter.com/ACB review. So ACB, and then you spell out review, and that'll be the Twitter. And you can also keep in touch at AdultColoringBookReview@gmail.com. And I appreciate you guys watching this first episode. Let me know what you think. And, you know, I always have something that I say, you know, at the end of every one of my shows. But I think for the adult coloring book review, what I'm going to say is enjoy art and love yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and I appreciate it.